Okay, I'm gonna try and draw her just as I would draw her at a digital gig. In other words, drawing on my iPad live in front of an audience. So I'm gonna choose the sketch layer and then just any old color. In fact, I like the color to be something other than black when I'm sketching because it makes it stand out a little bit better. So basically I'm doing a shape sketch. I'm thinking of the shapes that I see. It's not detailed, it's got to be quick because you don't have all day. You have when you're at a gig, you have a long line of people to draw. So that's my sketch. Just that simple and quick. Then I go to lines and I choose black for the lines. And just so you know which pen I'm using James's pen, which really it is a variation of the studio pen that comes with Procreate. I've just added a few adjustments to it, but you can also just use the studio pen. All right. Some of the things I do, I'm not even aware that I do. Like, for example, you just saw me zoom in. I know some artists who don't even zoom in. So she has her eyelashes like that. And what I'm using is I'm trying to use bold strokes. And I can drop the color in a solid outline. Now, if I was doing commissioned art, I would do this differently. I'd be taking more time and getting everything just right. But this is basically a demonstration of a live event Procreate drawing. So I'm trying to get it in one stroke, one line, in other words. And then I can drop the color and outline. And look at this little mistake. My wrist drew this line. So that's why I wear gloves. They don't always work, but the glove is supposed to make my wrist and the palm of my hand invisible to the iPad. There's a little nose on there. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to be super detailed. I am just trying to get it down in one line. So I'm noticing her mouth, to me, is what I would consider a narrow mouth. In other words, it's not a big wide mouth, it's a small mouth, so I could have even made it smaller than that. And I'd love to be able to exaggerate this drawing the way that this artist exaggerates her drawings, but that's something I really have to work at, whereas she is able to just do it naturally. And if you want to know how I create that layer group ahead of time, please keep watching till the end of the video and I'll show you exactly how I create it. Creating a layer group may be boring to watch, so I'll save that till the end. Alright, now we gotta get the hair on there. Okay, so now I'm just centering it, trying to get it in the center. You notice I didn't draw the glasses yet, and I'm making the sketch disappear by clicking that button. Her glasses are sort of like a feature. She wears those, I see all the time, or at least I see them wearing them all the time in social media, and there's a cool way to do glasses that I want to add on here. So I basically created a new layer for the glasses. I don't always do that, but I think in this case it's going to add a cool element. The glasses seem big on her face, and so I guess that's what I'm exaggerating, is her glasses, which is kind of a way to cheat. If someone's wearing big glasses, that is and you don't know what to exaggerate, just make their glasses gigantic. Okay, now we're going to color this. Click on the color layer. And you can see I have a swatch here called skin tones. And I just kind of match her skin tone. I would say let's use that one. And then, since I'm already on the color layer, which is a separate layer, now I'm going to basically create an outline. It has to be unbroken so that I can drop the color in it. And that's how I save like 30 seconds. If you continue to save 30 seconds here and there, you're going to be able to get this drawing done in 5 minutes. Okay, so if you just saw, I just selected white by holding my finger down. And I've drawn the white of the eyes. All right, now, dark brown eyes. So I'm choosing dark brown from my color swatches, and zoom in a little bit so that I don't go outside the lines. Now, in that skin tone, I'm choosing the lip color or the blush color. I'm dropping the opacity and adding that to the lips. I might leave a little open space there for a highlight, and then we're choosing her hair is black or super dark brown. So in the skin tone swatch, there's black or super dark brown right there. Opacity back to the top, and then the same thing is I'm going to create an outline of where that color, that flat color, is going to go, and then drop the color in there by selecting this, holding it, and then releasing it there. I'm choosing blue for her shirt. Oops. Sometimes you have to click on that more than once and to be sure that it is selected. Okay. I'm just suggesting the shirt. I'm not going to draw her whole body. That's another cheat. Some people, if they're fast artists, they'll draw their shoulders and arms all the way down to their midsection. But if you're not fast like me, you just do like a just a ring of color there to suggest a shirt, and you're good to go. Okay, now I'm going to show you something cool with these glasses. That's my glasses layer. I'm going to create a layer above that. I'm going to create a clipping mask. Then I'm going to go to my colors, and I am going to color those glasses. And I can even go to the color wheel if I can't find the color that I like. I'm looking for like a bright orange. Almost like a reddish orange. And then I can even lower the opacity a tiny bit maybe, and or raise the opacity up. There's a mix of colors on her glasses, so alright, let's choose a red. So as you see, I'm just going to go through and color the glasses by what I see on the photo. Okay, I got some cool glasses on there. Now we're gonna put something in the background. To frame her face. And bada bing, bada boom, we have a cool drawing for a live event. But since we're on a YouTube video and we're not at a live event, let's add some details to it. So if I have more time, this is what I might do. Click on the shadow layer. Let's get a darker skin tone and we can add some shadows. And basically I'm just looking at the photo. Her hair here is going to be casting a shadow. This edge of the cheek is sort of casting a shadow. There's a shadow cast on her neck. There's shadows inside her ear. A little shadow under the eye. Under this plane of the nose. At the corner there of cheek. And under the lips. A little bit under the chin. And then get the smudge tool and smooth that out. Now we can even go into some shadows in the hair. So I basically just selected the hair color, and because I'm on a layer that's called multiply, it's going to automatically be a little darker. Okay, now we can even choose the highlight layer and put some cool highlights. So I just chose a skin tone and sometimes there's a highlight on top of the nose. I'm kind of highlighting what I see, but I'm also kind of making it up a tiny bit. There's a highlight there and there on the chin. Right there. All right, then I'm going to get the smudge tool and smudge that in. But take a look at this. This is the drawing with highlights, and then that's without the highlights. With the highlights, without the highlights. It really takes the drawing to a higher level. And of course the highlights don't work unless you have the shadows on there. So that's the flat colors, the shadows, the highlights. But keep in mind, if I'm at a gig and I'm drawing a long line of people, I often don't do those extra steps because it still looks pretty cool. This is still a really Alright, let's create some highlights in her hair. I'm just choosing the hair color again, and then, well, let's do something that you can see a little better. I chose a blue because in old comic books that I used to read, back when they used to ink with paper and ink, if someone had dark hair, they would make the highlights blue, and it looked good. Not to make it look like they have blue hair, but just for some reason, the blue highlights worked with someone that has dark hair. So now I'm smudging the edges of these. And so I wanted to try blue and see if it looks cool. So far, so good. Okay, there's highlights and shadows. So let me know what you think. Does it look pretty cool? nice souvenir to have a cool drawing like this at an event, and you got it in 6 minutes. But if I have some extra time, we can add shadows. If I have any extra time beyond that, I can add highlights. And if I practice enough, and I'll automatically get faster, and maybe one day I'll be able to add all of those details in 6 minutes. But right now, that's where I'm at. Okay, let me show you how I create this layer group. So first off, I'm gonna create a layer. This is Procreate. So I'm just gonna put my finger on any layer and put it right over top of another layer, and you'll see a blue box show up there. Then I'm gonna let go, and I've just created a group. And if you wanna move the group around, you click on this new group tab. Okay, now inside the group, I'm going to click on this layer, and then I'm just going to hit the plus button and add a bunch of layers. It's just that easy. This top layer, I'm going to name it, I'm going to rename it. That's the lines layer. The layer below that, I'm renaming it. That is the color layer. There is more to this, but I'm going to show you. Okay, now I'm going to skip these layers. I'm going to go down to this layer here, and I'm going to rename it Sketch Layer. Now we've got to do some digital kung fu on this thing. So I'm going to make some kind of a mark on the page so I can see what I'm doing. Now this sketch layer, I'm going to lower the opacity so that I can see through it, so it's barely there. I'm going to touch this layer with 2 fingers, and I'm going to reduce it to however I want my sketch to look. I want it to kind of be barely there, just as a map and a guide while I'm drawing the lines. So what about this? 25 or 30, something like that. If you look, this right here is reading what the opacity is. Right now it says 31%. Let's leave it there. So I clear that layer, because you can't lower the opacity if there's nothing on the layer. But now it's ready. Anything I put on that layer is going to be at that lowered opacity. Now above the color layer, I'm going to create a shadow layer. First off, let's go back to the color layer. Let's draw something on it. Now we're going to go to the layer above that, and I'm going to set it to multiply. Let's go ahead and rename this layer Shadows. And then I'm going to make it a clipping mask. So now it is set to multiply. It is a clipping mask to the layer below it, and it's called Shadows. Now what happens? Anything I draw on it, it creates a shadow. See that? That shadow's pretty dark and bold, so sometimes what I'll do is lower the opacity on the shadow. So I click this layer with 2 fingers, the opacity bar pops up, and then I just lower the opacity a little bit. I don't know, maybe 50 or 45. Here I've got it at 45%. Now I'm going to create a layer above shadows, and I'm going to rename it Highlight. I'm going to set it to either add or screen. And this one, let's do add. And then I'm going to set it as a clipping mask. So these clipping masks, since they're right on top of each other, they both clip to color. So highlight is, like I said, the highlight. Now, you see how I'm using the exact same purple, but because it's set to highlight, it's going to be much lighter and bold like that. And sometimes the highlights are a little too bold, so I can lower the opacity on that layer also. I've got the opacity bar up, I'm sliding it down to something I think looks pretty good. And now we got it. I created some extra layers here, so I'm just going to delete those, slide it to the side, delete, slide it to the side, delete. I'm keeping the sketch layer. And this layer I'm going to rename background, because you notice how sometimes I'll draw like a square or some type of a square frame in the background because I think it kind of looks cool. So my layer is now created. See, if I want to move the whole layer at once, all those layers, I just move the group. I touch the group tab and move it around and they all stay together. But now there's a couple more steps. I'm going to hit clear. Clear that layer, clear that layer, clear that layer, and it just clears what was drawn on the layer. And so now I have a group that's all ready for a live gig. I've got lines, highlights, shadows, color, sketch, and background. And for every drawing that I do, I'm going to duplicate this layer. I'm going to make sure, you see how I'm sliding it to the left, hit duplicate, and all those layers are duplicated, the entire group. And so if I know I'm going to draw 20 people during a gig, I can just duplicate this 20 times ahead of time, or I can duplicate them as I go. But I always want to remember to duplicate a few of them ahead of time, because I have done a complete drawing and then there's no empty group to duplicate, and then I have to recreate the group. I don't want to have to do that during a gig, so I just create all of this ahead of time. And that is how I create my layer groups to get them ready for a live digital caricature event.